As we near the end of our recruitment takeover mini series on the Your Sorority Journey podcast, I knew that there was a big topic that you all were going to be wanting to hear from and talk through before you go into those recruitment rounds. Most of the takeover, we have spent time talking about how to have values-based conversation, how to focus on the right things throughout recruitment. But I know sometimes those distractions can overshadow the intentional conversations that you're trying to have with a potential new member, right? We can get so caught up and focused on either what we're wearing, the decorations on the walls, or the logistics that go into the recruitment process holistically that we can forget about the goal and the greater purpose of recruitment. And so today, I want to talk about two of those major logistical pieces, sometimes nightmares of the recruitment experience that can kind of derail us from focusing on the right things. So, if you're a potential new member, if you're a recruitment counselor, you are more than welcome to stay on and listen so you know how to better navigate these situations when they come up, or as a recruitment counselor, guide your PNMs through them. But know that this episode is specifically for our recruiters to better bump and double recruit. So let's talk about bumping first. Now, if you have recruited before, you are familiar with this topic, right? So you are talking to a PNM, you're having a conversation, and a sister comes and interjects herself in your conversation to transition out, allow you to go talk to a different PNM, and she will continue that conversation with the PNM you were speaking to. If you have only gone through recruitment as a PNM and haven't recruited before, then you might have remembered this experience, right? You might be putting that together and say, oh, that was intentional. That was meant to happen. Yes, that was meant to happen. Bumping happens to ensure that every potential new member that shows up to your chapter has an opportunity to meet as many women as possible, to connect with different types of women in your chapter and start to see herself fitting in, because typically you won't be best friends with every member in the chapter, right? And so if your first interaction with a woman in that chapter isn't someone that you would necessarily be friends with, it's good to see that there are different types of women in that chapter. Now, as a recruiter, bumping can become sometimes a strategic nightmare, right? We get so caught up on how to have the smoothest transition or what you're going to talk to that sister about to switch over easily, that we forget about the woman sitting across from you, that we forget that there is a potential new member who is the priority in this situation, that we want to help cultivate that sense of belonging and that sense of sisterhood and focus. And so I want to talk through how we can bump better, right? So when you're having a conversation with a potential new member and your sister comes and bumps you, instead of focusing on her interjecting, how can you make the potential new member the focus of that transition? How can you share with your sister a tidbit, a fun fact, or something that you've learned from this potential new member in the time that you've gotten to know her, so that as that new sister comes to get to know this woman that you've been talking to, she maintains the focus and the priority of the conversation. Because when a potential new member comes into your room, we want her to feel like the star of the show, like the center of our sorority world. And so, unless she's asking you questions about the chapter or your sisterhood, your friendship between the two of you, work to keep the conversation in that transition centered around the potential new member, so that sister who's coming to bump you can feel well educated and set up for success to continue hyping up that potential new member and helping her see how she could fit in your sisterhood. Now, that also requires that you get to know the women that you are bumped by and are going to bump really well before the recruitment rounds, getting to know what they're interested in, getting to know what they've gained from the chapter, how long they've been in the chapter, why they even went through a sorority. So you're able to prepare that PNM of common traits or shared interests, things that they'd be able to relate to as you come and go between potential member conversations. Now, bumping typically is happening when you're in a one-on-one conversation, right? You're talking to one PNM, sister of yours comes and chats with you to take over that conversation. But we also have this thing called double recruiting. Sometimes it will happen that there are more potential new members coming to your event than there are recruiters able to pick them up, right? And so, what needs to happen in that situation that you are picking up not one, but two potential new members is you now become a facilitator or a mediator of conversations to help two potential new members shine when you are the only recruiter talking to them, right? Much easier to do when you are one on one. And so, oftentimes, one potential new member or another can feel a little overshadowed or hushed or outspoken by the other. I remember going through recruitment many years ago and being double recruited by a chapter that the recruiter and the other woman that I was picked up with had an immediate connection. They were both from Chicago. They had all these neighborhoods and high schools, and they were even looking for a mutual friend that they might have from the place that they grew up. I, being a West Coast gal through and through, had nothing to relate to them about, right? And so I felt super overshadowed or unincluded from the conversation. Your job is to not be like that recruiter and just focus on connecting with one PNM. Your goal is to make both potential new members feel included in that conversation, even if they have way different interests or passions or purposes of going through the recruitment process. If one potential member starts to overshare or be really flamboyant and excited, your role, your responsibility is to take something that she has shared and ask the other potential member if she can relate to it, if there's something that builds, that a question that she could answer that's similar to the answer that the other potential member was going off on. And if one of those potential members asks you a question, it's your responsibility to share and be open about your sorority experience yourself and find a common connection to bring the other woman who didn't ask that question in. So whether you are going through a bump exchange or you are double recruiting, it is your job to make the potential new member shine regardless of the logistics. Yes, if you are chanting, if you are escorting women around the room, whatever kind of flow or structure happens in your campus culture or that your vice president of recruitment or membership is executing, definitely follow it. But know it so well. Know those structural patterns or little, I don't know, special pieces of your recruitment structure, like the back of your hand, so you don't have to focus on them anymore. In the same way that in our values-based recruitment episode, we talked about getting ready exactly how you want to look and focusing on that, getting dressed to feel your most confident and not thinking about it again when you leave your apartment, your dorm, your sorority house room, whatever. Because once you're ready, you're ready. You're not going to focus on your hair and makeup anymore unless you have a lunch break, and you're just going to focus on the potential new members for the rest of the day, for showing up for your sisters, for making informed decisions, whatever that looks like in your membership selection process, to ensure that both the sister and the chapter find the right fit. So whether you are bumping or you're double recruiting, my challenge for you is to do everything you can to make the potential new member shine and start to see how she would belong in your sisterhood.